Matisse is one of the greatest artists of the first half of the 20th century. He's someone who was always interested in color and light and unifying them. He pushed his art in new ways. He used repeated imagery to compare effects, to compare color, to compare technique. He, at times, reacted to and against what Picasso was doing. But by the time of World War II, it was accepted that Matisse was perhaps one of the greatest artists working in Europe, if not in the Western part of the world. From 1894 to 1907, and again in late 1913, Matisse rented a studio in a building that overlooked the Seine River. And Matisse painted these views over and over again. He said of the view of Notre Dame, it is always new for him. And so in the exhibition, we have 4 views that he painted of Notre Dame. And each one of them shows the depth of perspective from the facade of the cathedral all the way back to himself. In the 30s, Matisse hired a studio assistant who later began posing for him. She was a Russian emigre named Lydia Delektorskaya, and she was the one who made the skirt, which is right behind me, in which she posed for a famous painting now in the Philadelphia Museum of Art called The Large Blue Dress. There are 10 photographs that were taken during the creation of The Large Blue Dress. They don't show studies for that actual painting, but they show the canvas itself as it evolved. It's a remarkable painting. It's almost like an archaeological dig. If you look at it closely, you can see a number of the changes Matisse made during its creation. In 1944, Matisse moved to Vence. It was the end of the war. There was concern that Nice would be bombed. And it was during his stay at the Villa Le Rêve, the House of Dreams, that Matisse created his last painted series. They showed the second floor studio of his house that looked out over the front garden where there were 2 large palm trees. And really, they're all about color and light. They're the last painted series that Matisse did during his career. It is true that he was in poor health, but I think that the reason this is the last painted series is that he felt he had achieved all that he needed with his painting. This exhibition is a look not at Matisse's entire career, nor even at just his paintings, but at one specific aspect of his painting process. This need, if you will, to repeat imagery throughout his career in order to, as he put it, push further and deeper in search of true painting.
These little bombs hold the power to strengthen the dunes, to make them stronger, to make them healthy again. And they were quite damaged by the storm. They were damaged before the storm. And we're just giving Mother Nature a little help.
Put them in?
Yeah, here, give me your hand.
Me too?
Give me your hand. That's grasses, these ones.
These ones are,
That's sumac.
Sumac. What does sumac do?
Sumac, it grows, so it grows roots. We want the roots to hold the dunes in place. Because dunes are made of sand, so they move very easily. So now you pour water. I think we can use a tiny bit more water.
Just a tiny bit. There you go. That's good.
We don't want it sprouting when we're keeping it here. We want it to sprout once it's out in nature. So we want it to dry up as fast as possible when it's here, so we can keep them a little longer. And then when it's time for us to go and throw them in the dunes, the rainwater will take care of getting them wet and getting them to sprout.
fight Monsanto is to obsolete them. Like, we just have to be better than they are and show, like, local productivity is far more efficient. We're losing our soil at a rapid pace as well from the Monsanto industrial paradigm. And so a lot of it has to do with coming back to the land, understanding the indigenous concepts of how to be in balance with the rhythms in this massive transition. So that, if any of you want to be part of that farming network, we have our major farm up in Wassaic. We're like fighting the banks from taking this land. All of the issues get really human once you start going back to the land, so we can start creating our own networks of liberated land. So anybody interested in bioregional farm networks and interested in working with the indigenous, come find this F for farms. We're right next to Kevin on the other side of that there big water thingy. And on the other side of the water thingy, we'll be presenting how to use seed bombs from my friend Anne. Right there, we got cool hats where impossible to miss. So come find us over that way if you'd like to learn about how to take control of your food system. Direct action all the way.
Take control of your food. We've got the seed bombs right here. The seeds that I used in the seed bombs for the shore are only seeds of plants that belong in the dunes. There's 2 dune systems, it's a double dune. So I'm doing only the first dune right after the ocean. And unfortunately, I was only able to get 3 out of the 12 plants that grow there. We don't have access to our seeds. I did a little website, Seed Bomb the Coastline, teaching people also how to go pick the seeds during harvest time and how to plant the dune grass in the winter time when they're dormant, and kind of get the communities there to learn how to have this momentum going where 3 days a year you're taking care of your natural barrier.
Okay, we're ready to have seed balls?
Yeah! Oh, I can't reach it! Oh, you can take our shoes off if you want.
Somebody help me! My feet are buried!
You got your seed balls?
Push your leg on my back.
These are love bombs. Plant stuff. They're non-violent. We did it!
We'll always have Paris, says Humphrey Bogart to Ingrid Bergman in the beloved classic movie Casablanca. For most people, it's a wonderful Hollywood fantasy, but for journalist and author Katie Martin, a childhood Hungarian immigrant to the USA, it's been her life. From seeing the student riots of May 1968 to jogging along the Seine in the 21st century as a recent widow, she's experienced Paris in many ways. Canapé talks with the writer about her book, Paris, a Love Story, as a lens on family and friends, husbands and lovers, life and loss.
Paris first entered my life as kind of a fantasy during the Cold War, growing up in Budapest, when we had a babysitter, my sister and I, who turned out to be a secret police agent, a terrible woman, but she taught me my very good French. And while she was using my sister and me to inform to the authorities about our parents goings-on, which ultimately led my parents to prison, she was filling my head with stories about La Belle France, Douce France. That was my first exposure to France, and it left me longing for the real thing. And the real thing came into my life when I was a late adolescent, and it was 1968. And I finally reached the promised land. Which, of course, during that exciting year of 1968 became sort of the a ringside seat to Les Événements du Mai, the uprising, the student uprising that rocked the entire nation. And rocked me as well, because it was not my first revolution. And so my kind of dreamy Paris, the Paris where I had been discovering all the things that young people have always discovered in Paris: beauty, great food, learned how to dress, learned how to tie scarves, fell in love for the first time. All those things were suddenly washed away by this really quite upsetting to me uprising. It was time to flee, and I did flee in 1968, but with a vow to myself that I would return. And it took 10 years for me to return. Paris was really my first big assignment as a foreign correspondent for ABC News in the late 70s. It also coincided with my explosive romance with Peter Jennings, my colleague at ABC, but of course he was by then a big star. And we fell in love in Paris. This was no longer the modest student digs that I formerly inhabited on the left bank. This was now the right bank, and we lived on the Rue de Berry in a wonderful hotel called the Lancaster, a fabled hotel where Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, and well before that Robert Capa, the great photographer, had all lived. And it was, you know, it was the golden age of foreign corresponding. In my last relationship with Paris, I got to know it as the wife of this hyperactive diplomat. It started during the Balkan Wars when Richard was endlessly circling among the capitals of these warring nations, that is to say Belgrade, Sarajevo, Zagreb, looking for a diplomatic solution to the bloodiest war in Europe since World War II. And Paris became our kind of R&R place. We had our routine in Paris where my apartment is just 2 blocks from the Seine, and so we would always start with the Notre Dame, because Richard had made a very careful study. He was not a man who did anything casually of all the statues that grace that marvelous cathedral. So he had an intimate relationship with all those statues, and so therefore I learned to as well. And we would just, well, do what couples always do in Paris. So those triggered the memories that formed 2 sections of the book, and then the third section, which is really about my current life in Paris and looking for joy in remembered joy, but at the same time building new memories with my own children who have a deep love for Paris, as well as my sister who lives there and her kids. So we formed a pretty tight unit with Paris as the place where we go now for major holidays. And you know, the thing about death is that and loss is that it opens up new lives, as it must. So this is a book about love and loss and life after loss. And for me, Paris has been the perfect place to both carry my own history with me, because I guess Paris is where I became who I am, but also a place to build a new life, because Paris is, I'm sure Hemingway said this a lot better, eternal, and you really feel like you're in touch with history, at every intersection, at every corner you come face to face with history and with the fact that of our own mortality as being very much a part of life. C'est la vie.
Okay.
A haven for sailors in port, the Red Hook section of New York was notorious for a century for its vice. Now it's famous for its hospitality to the arts. There could be no better example of the new cosmopolitanism than jazz vocalist and musician Cyril Aimé, whose global repertoire reflects her many travels and family heritage from France, the USA, and the Dominican Republic. Canapé catches her waterside in the mood to perform.
Some folks are born made to wave a flag. All they're red and white and blue. And when the band plays hail to the chief, all they point the cannon at you. Oh no, no, it ain't me. No, it ain't me. I'm no fortunate soul. No, no, it ain't me. No, it ain't me. I'm no senator son.
Music was always a big part of my life because my mother is from Dominican Republic, so she had salsa playing all day in the house. She loves dancing. My parents throw the best parties, and so there was always music and dancing in the house. I grew up in Samois-sur-Seine, which is the village where Django Reinhardt lived, the gypsy guitar player. And so when I was around 14, I met the gypsies because every year there's a festival in his honor in my town. And so gypsies come from all across Europe in their caravans. And so I started hanging out with the gypsies and I became fascinated with their way of living. And I made friends with this one gypsy whose name was Lumpy. And he taught me how to play guitar and I would teach him how to read. So the first song I learned was called Sweet Sue, and so then the gypsies called me Sweet Sue. And then I learned by heart all the Stéphane Grappelli solos, all the Django solos. And one day someone gave me a 4 CD box set of Ella Fitzgerald, and I learned every note on those 4 CDs. And learning all the harmony and the improvisation and all the rhythmic patterns is just by singing all the time, any chance I get.
If you want the thrill of love, I've been through the mill of love. Old love, new love, anything but true love. For sin, advertising your love for sin.
What attracted me the most about this kind of music is the freedom in the improvisation. That's my favorite thing in music. It's why I make music. It's just the fact that you never know what's gonna happen. You just see what happens at that moment. It's the same thing that attracted me in the gypsy way of life, which is just live the moment. The gypsies don't see further than a week. And so it's really that notion of just living the minute fully. There's no mistakes allowed in the loop pedal when you're playing a song, because if you make one mistake, the mistake is looped every single time. As a singer, it's kind of a dream you always have to be able to make chords, because you're a line instrument, so basically you can't divide your voice and make chords. You can't be like a guitar or a piano player. And it was always my dream to be able to do that, just do a whole song by myself. It's a lot of fun it's a great toy for a singer to play with.
Je salue les mains dans les poches, le cœur dans la gorge. Une semaine m'a semblé un an. Il s'assit tout à côté de moi. Ma peau commence à brûler et je cache mes joues rouges.
I really like the English language for singing, but I do love singing in French. I also sing a little bit in Spanish because my mom's Dominican and I speak Spanish, and a little bit in Brazilian because I tour a lot with a Brazilian guitar player, and we have 2 CDs together and we do some bossa nova together. But there are some French songs that the lyrics just give me goosebumps.
Il faut de moi une faille. Je le noie dans une caille. Je me noie dans son corps.
For me personally, music is just a way of living. I love every kind of music. To me, music is just something that you can't describe because it's not something you can grasp. It's just you hear it and it puts you in a mood immediately. And I perform, it's like home. I feel like I'm more on stage than I'm not. I love it. I just have so much fun.
C'était bon?